Hey, that was pretty good. You lined yourself up, moved all around, and you still managed to stay in center
How
frame.
about that?
They're proud of you.
I do feel, am I too far?
Stu, don't move.
I'm too far this way.
Don't fuss. Good morning, everybody. This is Joe and Kelin in the morning, Youngstown's talk channel.
Good morning.
So a couple things. I don't want to get right into politics because I hate it. I finished Landman last night. Have you been doing Landman?
I haven't. Well, I get served the reels on Facebook, so I feel like I've seen bits and pieces of the show in like 7-second increments.
So no,
not really. No.
Okay. It's a great. It is a great show.
Yeah.
And Taylor Sheridan is just responsible for pretty much every show that is decent on streaming services.
Yeah.
Did a really fantastic job with Landman. In the fight, and I don't want to do it with spoilers, but it's probably what you've seen on your
Don't
reels.
spoil it.
In the last 2 episodes, there was a
spoiler alert.
A run in with a militant leftist non-binary they them. It was comical.
BJ's like, here we go.
It was comical how like stereotypical the run-in was, but he did it so well because it's not beyond disbelief, right?
Was it Billy Bob Thornton's character had the run-in?
It was Ainsley, which is Billy Bob's daughter in the show.
Okay.
And she's this bubbly cheerleader type, and she's going off to college.
I did see this scene.
Yes.
This was in a college dorm room.
So she got assigned a dorm room with a they them, and a militant type they them, one that's like feels they have the noble advantage and is just lashing her with every trope that you can imagine that a militant leftist would be. And her mom, which is this like super type A personality, demands, changing rooms and moving away. And they just didn't have this great run in. But the second part of it is the way that was kind of brilliant with Taylor Sheridan's design on this is in the last episode, they have a run in together, right? Where the they them is a sports medicine. She's in cheerleading. The sports medicine, coach is observing the they them. Is observing what she's doing, notices that she's got some weakness in her ankles, tapes her up, does a nice thing for her. And then the they them starts getting picked on by a bunch of kids that came to the stadium. And then she comes to the rescue and, hits the bullies, not physically, but hits the bullies with some harsh words. And so you see this forged of where they were once enemies. They found common ground, and the militant wasn't so militant. Ainsley played the noble character. The worst she did was point out obvious truths to this they them.
Yeah.
That's why it was like, us normal people, when we're put in this position, like there's a lot of anger and angst that's been drummed up by the media and culture that you're making an argument against a straw man. You don't know that I don't hate, support, but you still aim your ammunition at us no matter what. It was brilliantly done in this scene.
Yeah, I did see the scene online. I didn't really see any setup or context or anything, but the interaction I saw. And yeah, like you said, the daughter was very sweet, very respectful, wasn't pushing back in a mean way. She was simply like, I never did really understood the they them. How come you want to be they them when it's just one of you? I know what you are. There's one person in front of me. I could simply just say, the right words, but okay. She's like, I just don't get it. I don't think it makes much sense, but and like she kind of went on this tangent of,
have you ever been put in a they them position where you were challenged on, forcing language on you?
I wouldn't say forcing. I have a good friend of mine. I've known her since we were in middle school, who is now married to a non-binary person. And when my friend, who is she, talks about their partner, they say they them. I've never met this partner in person before, but because she uses those pronouns when referring to her spouse, I will use them when referring to her spouse because it's out of respect for her. But I've never actually met them, and I've never felt a push to do it.
Okay.
I just heard her use it, so then I used it.
Well, see, and I don't mind the sentiment if it means that we're going around and we're trying to make people feel comfortable in what they believe. And I say, listen, it would make me feel comfortable if you call me talk show king. That is my preference. That'll make me feel really good. Now, are you obligated? Then if you want to be considerate to me, the talk show king is what you now refer to me. Right. So if we're in that moment, then I will call you Princess Princess Kelin. And you will call me talk show king. And then we'll go around, and every time you say it, I will smile. And every time I say it, you will smile, so long that it's bidirectional.
Yeah. And I think, and if it's for a person that I feel has earned respect, and it's coming from
Are you saying I haven't earned talk show king?
No. I'm not even saying you've earned the title. I'm just saying you're a person that is being kind. You give respect. You deserve respect back. Even if I don't agree with the title, you're someone that I would go ahead and gladly do it.
And that's what consideration is. Someone makes a request, and as long as they're reasonable back at you, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're militant, when you are demanding that I call you talk show king under threat of I'll destroy your life, now it becomes a completely different thing.
Yeah. In fact, it is interesting. And again, I didn't see the full episode, but in that short interaction reel that I saw, the person who was saying they are they, them was kind of the mean one.
Kinda?
Were they like kind of a jerk?
They feel entitled and emboldened.
Now this is a character. They were told to play that way. So if you walked into a room, right, with a bunch of other people, and we all make concessions to having other people around us. We can make some demands. Hey, the music is too loud. Will you turn the music down? Mm-hmm. Right? I don't like pets. I'm allergic to them. Can you keep your dog caged up? Like, these are all reasonable requests. But again, they're not bi-directional, where Ainsley didn't walk into the room and start saying, the lighting's all wrong, let me change everything. Mm-hmm. You get to sleep on the floor because I like the bed. And so as long as it was the dynamic was two emboldened, entitled people that were making unreasonable requests at each other, then that would have played, right? Mm-hmm. But it was one-sided, where one of the side of the conversation was making all of the, this is how it's going to be, and I don't care about your feelings. And Ainsley, when she was appealing to the administration, basically said is that this person didn't care how I felt and what I wanted. There wasn't a single curiosity in how make both of us feel comfortable. And it was a real good illustration of how things are really. And it didn't, and it was absurd, but it wasn't magnified outside of what really happens out there in the world. When this era dies, I will be so happy. So happy. The era of new ways of representing yourself? Is that what you mean?
The era of where my feelings are the prominent feelings and everybody has to bow to how I feel, and I don't give two shits about anybody else's feelings.
Yeah.
When it's reciprocal, now we have a starting point.
Yeah, we need to sort of bring back like the consideration of others. Everything right now is like, I hate using this term because it is so cliche and overused, but we are sort of becoming more of that narcissistic mindset. Everything is about us. We only consider what we want. The world revolves around us. And it's like, we need to bring back sort of consideration and awareness of other people. Mm-hmm. It's so funny. We were, my family and I went roller skating on Saturday, and I went to the restroom before I went to get my skates. And on the way back, there was a whole like family, like a group of like adults and their kids, and they were getting skates on, and they had their little wheelie things, and they were doing all this stuff right in the middle, right in the thick of where everybody passes by to get their skates or put their skates on or move. I had to walk like several feet onto the floor, the skating rink, to get around them. Mm-hmm. To go where I was going. And I'm just like, can we all be a little self-aware of like, oh my God, we are blocking the entire way. And people have to walk onto the skating rink to get around us. Let's pull it in a little bit, maybe.
You're honing in on something. I blame the secularists for everything, right? And mm-hmm. I think it's a really bad experiment. Had great intentions. The church corrupted itself, and it did a really poor job at influencing society. It got a little power hungry, little money hungry, and it forgot what its position was in culture. And so because of that, the secularists got a lot of momentum behind them. Well, what is secularism, right? It is basically saying the pivotal point, the fulcrum, right, of society is the self. Well, religion is the opposite of that. You have selflessness, where you're doing things that don't make sense to you, and you're doing it for the sake of the good of others, right? Underpin tenet of religion. And you have the secularists who are like, I know what's right. I know what's noble. I know what's virtuous, and I will make the world in the image that I created. Well, individuals that are part of secularists, they're not Jesus, right? They're not perfection embodied. And so human beings are going to serve their own interests first and foremost. And if they can get a collection of people that feel like they do, then they basically can wield it onto other people in a tyrannical type of deal. Noble intentions, terrible tyrannical verbs, right? And so you're skating people, right? They all decided that they didn't give two shits about who had to walk around them. That wasn't even a thought in their head. So we've taken consideration and not even made it a neurological process. We're thinking of ourselves, and we've got to put our skates on, and you can deal with it. And that's how the inhuman secularism becomes so popular, because it works out really well for the individual who's exercising it.
Yeah. And I mean, it is. We've sort of become a part of this culture now that is do what feels good.
That's right.
Do what you think is right.
Where it leads to.
Yeah. Like, what do you think is right, and push back on that, because that's what matters. You must be right. It's not about serving others. It's respect yourself. And it's like, that can go too far.
And it has.
I saw an interesting Facebook post over the weekend. And I will admit, my first gut reaction was I kind of was like, oh, yes, that's true. And then the more I looked at it, I went, that's not true. That's actually bullshit. And what it was is a picture of Charlie Kirk and Renee Good in heaven holding hands. And they were looking down, and they were looking kind of sad. And it was like, what are we doing to each other? Look what we have done to each other, what we have become. And it was this whole long thing, that these two have sort of been like the victims of this world we have created and this mindset we have created. And there's two people from both political parties now dead because of this chaos. What are we doing to each other? And part of me was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of profound. This is true. And then I went, in this case, is it really each other doing it? Or do you think it is heavy a certain group doing this? That those deaths were not each other. It's not like they were two sides of a war fighting and those were casualties. Kind of feels like both were casualties, one group. And I'm not saying a political party. I'm saying a specific group, whether they're anarchists, whether they're whatever, extremists, whatever. How do you feel about that?
Like I said, the culmination when you have self-interest and you create what is the standard. You walk around every day, and do you have all pure thoughts, or is there sometimes you're a little on the vice side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And so long that we don't have a standard where, we're seeking the purest form of things. We're making excuses for certain people and punishing other people. Like, this anarchy and chaos is the 100% certain thing to happen. So I don't really get caught up in the minutia that we're doomed and it's going to get bad. Like, when it starts happening, I have zero surprise on my face. This is where mathematically we end up until you have a complete revival of the distancing between self and affecting, helping other people, doing things for other people, serving something greater than yourselves. We're freaking doomed.
But do you think it is, in general, a problem with just our entire population being like that? Or do you think it's worse in a group of like extremists that will never
it's just
think
how
that,
it's revealed.
like
Okay, so if you have, killer wasps contained in a bubble, right? They're interacting with them and doing things and whatever. They seem pretty docile. They're just going about their day. They're not hurting you. You're not hurting them. And then someone comes along that doesn't understand the containment of the bubble, what the bubble is actually doing. And then they come up with the idea, look at how docile they are. They're going to be just fine. If we just take that bubble away, they're going to have true happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the smart people are like, yeah, you don't want to do that. There's a reason there was a bubble there in the first place. But then they come along and say, no, it's going to be fine. And they remove the bubble. Like everything that happens after that moment, it's already released, right? It's going to be bad for a little bit and then be worse a little bit later. And until we find like what keeps human nature contained and behaving appropriately, we're just going to have expressions where human beings are human beings. They lie, they cheat, they steal, they kill, right? They rape, they pillage, they conquer.
Animals.
That's who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you remove the containing, if you don't know what religion did to keep human beings contained and whisper in their ear on a regular basis that they be better than they were the day before, and you have other people like fully express yourself and find your real self. I'm scared and petrified of real self human beings. And if they're given the freedoms to express themselves around me and people I care about, that is terrifying.
What do you say to the people that say, oh, religion was just created to control people, to make us do?
It was.
They think it's that in a bad way.
I'm saying it in a very good way.
Yeah.
So human beings had two elements to it. Number one, trying to figure stuff out, things they don't understand, trying to make sense of things that are higher orders than who we are, right? Mm-hmm. So that's part of it. And what was invented was sort of like wisdom from outside of human beings. And they tried to translate it, tried to interpret, put it in a way that human beings can understand. And then they handed that wisdom down to people who then were controlled by the wisdom, not by the church, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you had a collection of wisdoms about how to do X, Y, Z, and you just gave that information to somebody, wouldn't that be not controlling them? You know, like saying, hey, I'm going to give you 5 things that hurt you financially: gambling, drugs, whatever. And I hand you the wisdom. I handed you the wisdom because all of the things that are on that list mathematically lead to X, Y, Z.
When I tell you don't do it, it's bad because I know it's going to screw up your life.
And I'm at the same time,
you're trying to control me.
You have free will and you can decide whether or not you do those things or not do those things. Well, the church took it to another level where their congregations were controlled by keeping you in a perpetual AA meeting, right? They want you to not drink. And so they're going to keep you there as long as possible because you need further reminders, lots of reminders, what those wisdoms are and why we're giving them to you. So yes, it is a control mechanism. It is wisdom. There was an actual containment of what religion did for society. Now we have the wasps flying everywhere. And what they do, I could have suggested, is exactly what they would do. Try to justify bad behaviors, make it someone else's fault, and do complete anarchy and chaos on the rest of us. In a nutshell.
I agree. Jerry says, they or them have been used for centuries as more than one, and now we have people creating new meanings for pluralism. I can buy the wife or wife or husband, but this is really ridiculous. What's even more ridiculous is people getting offended when they know what it was meant to be, but can make other people feel uncomfortable. Attention grabbers that want to go against the norm. It's sort of wrong that Kelin's friend makes her feel or act different because she wants everyone to refer to, I can't see the rest, but he's probably talking about her partner. And again, I don't know. Maybe if I had used different pronouns, my friend might have said something. I don't know. I don't feel that she pushed anything. I just heard her do it and I followed along out of respect. So I don't know if I wouldn't say she made me do anything. She didn't ask me to use those words. She didn't ask me to do anything. I simply in conversation heard how she did it and I followed along. And I actually, for a while, defended the they, them. Because, yes, it sounds plural. It's used in a plural sense. You could also be in a situation where, let's say somebody left their keys here. We know one person was here, but we never saw them. Oh, here's some keys here. Who do these belong to? Oh, there's a phone number. Oh, call them. See if they can come pick them up. I'm talking about one person. I know I'm talking about one person, and I'm using they, them in a singular because I don't know what they are. However, I think that changes when you're face to face, you see them, and then you do know. Now is when it's weird and sounds like pluralism to say they, them. You're in front of me. I'm well aware. I've gathered the info now to use different terminology. So if you choose not to use that, then that's where we go back to, am I going to go ahead and give you the respect of calling you whatever you want or not?
And the filters you put that through, if I demanded everybody call me talk show king, you would think that's kind of silly and egotistical, self-centered, right? How dare you force me to call you talk show king? It's the same filter on the other side. So why is there some kind of like psychological or emotional leverage that in my case, you would not want to serve me egotistically, but in that case, like I don't care enough to hate it. I don't care enough to love it. I'll call everybody brother. Everybody's just brother. Hey, brother.
Yeah.
Brother did it. Brother did.
Yep. Yeah, because like if I knew, Jerry says my exact point. Yeah. If I knew you were a respectful person with integrity, you were kind, you treated everybody the way you wanted to be treated, you were just a good person, and you're like, I am really passionate about what I do, and I would really love the title Talk Show King. It makes me feel good. I'll call you Talk Show King all day long. If you are an arrogant, narcissistic asshole and you treat people badly and you demand to be called it, I'm going to say, get bent. I'm not calling you that.
That's exactly right. Perfect. Perfectly stated.
Perfect.
Emelobro says, Joe doesn't believe in religion, but aliens. What do you mean I don't believe in
100%.
religion? Listen,
Joe believes in religion.
Are you serious,
brothers?
Bros? No,
Listen, he can believe in both. Okay, he believes in both.
Maybe religion has some,
maybe,
origins.
Maybe
aliens.
Jesus and the aliens are working together.
But when I dissect things, I always know what I do know and don't know. I know when I'm in belief territory, and I know when I'm in factual I know territory. And all of my religious beliefs can be sort of like arbitrarily tested for me. And that's all. I don't push my religion, what I believe, on everybody else, because I don't believe that everyone is talked to the same way with religion. I think there's, millions of different iterations of what the wisdom that comes from. And I don't have a spiritual guide, right? There's nobody that really helps me interpret. When a pastor's standing on stage and he's reading a passage, right? And I read the passage, I get 1% of the meaning until it's explained to me by someone who's truly trying to find data. That's valuable to me because that's like reading a white paper and having a technician of some kind tell you what all of this stuff means that are above your pay grade.
Yeah. If you've ever tried to read the Bible, and I did it last year, if you truly want to follow along, you're going to need someone to help you.
Yeah.
You just are.
That is when I dissect it, I find the roles and the nouns in everything that religion has to stand for. And it's meaningful in a way to me. I've been not gifted there. I have no, it's not my duty to convert anybody or to teach anybody because I'm as dumb as a rock when it comes to it.
Yeah. And every time I've been in a discussion with somebody, like I know a couple atheists, for some reason, they love to just argue and make you feel dumb for what you believe. And they want to debate all these historical facts and scientific facts and all these different things. And I always come down to look, if you want to have a conversation or a debate over the historical accuracy of scripture or evolution, there are people in fields of that nature that would be happy to share it with you. That is not me. All I can tell you is I know what my life was following this guideline and not following it. I can be very happy and prosperous and feel good and find value in following it. And when I don't, I feel shitty. You want to hear about that? I'll tell you about that all day long. I'm telling you, I think this is a good thing because I think it could really turn someone's life around in a positive way. If you don't believe it, you don't have to believe it. Keep living the other way and then tell me how good you feel.
And I think, religion has this part right. And that's what makes me more libertarian and conservative than Democrats. We both want to help people, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't want to help people through bureaucracies and large scale systems. I don't want to do it. I think it's in everybody's nature, right, to part with some of their cash to help somebody individually. I think it's better well done. I think the money is better well spent. I think people are affected. It changes something in them. It changes something in you. So if we took the budget of health and human services and we just gave a tax credit of equal and said, here's what's the deal. If you go out in the world and help people, you're going to be able to take all the money that you use to help people, and that is going to be our health and human services. Democrats feel like large institutions do a better job. Great. Test it out, measure it, tell me if they're doing a good job. If their percentage of help is in the 20% range, I'm going to say we could probably do better. If you give it to the individual people and the help that's given is in the 80%, I'm going to go with that one. And just, both are probably necessary. There are probably large scale things that are better done by large bureaucracies. Fine. Let them still do that. But break off. We can't have what human beings should be doing individually and outsourcing it to institutions that have no soul. They have no virtue. They're easily corruptible. There's fraud and waste that will happen. If we set up our table of $1,000 there, right, on an individual basis, I can protect that money and put rules that make sure the people I believe should get it.
Yeah.
An institution, when they put $1,000, they will let it fly, let it get corrupted, let it get stolen, and then later try to figure out what happened. And by that point, it's too late. So again, same thing. We're trying to help people, done in two different strategies. And my way is better.
I like too. I think you said something about it's not only helping other people, but it helps you as well. So I'm going to briefly touch on this because I don't want it to sound like I'm tooting my horn. I'm not trying to. But so last year, my husband and I started this idea of during the Lent season, and the only reason it's the Lent season is because our local VFW does a fish fry. In order to support the VFW and support local families, we can't eat the fish fries because we're gluten-free. I can't have it. But I want to support people. So what we started doing, and this will be our second year doing it, is we work with our church and we work with people in the community and we get the names and phone numbers and information of anyone in the community that could use a hot meal. Whether they're struggling or not, if it's going to make them feel good, if it's a way to support them, we go every Friday. We purchase a handful of these meals. We give that money to the VFW. We buy it with our own money and we drive it to these families and we deliver it for them. VFW benefits, the families benefit. Guess what? We're paying for that. We have to foot that bill. So what do we have to do? Well, we're going to go eat out less. We're going to not go to a restaurant every other day. We're going to cook at home. We're going to not spend our money on dumb stuff like home decor that I don't need, and we're going to save money. And for a period of time, we're going to sacrifice that so that we have the money. And guess what happens? We are healthier because we ate out less. Mm-hmm. We aren't broke because we didn't spend money on dumb shit. Like, it actually benefits us. We know people in our community better now. The VFW, the organization my husband is a part of, now thrives and can help more people like my husband. So we benefit from it by giving to others.
Well, even psychologically. So you get those same kind of brain chemicals, the dopamines, the serotonins, oxytocins, when you do that. So it's the same chemicals when you take care of yourself and you get greedy and you have envy and all you're doing is buying things that make you happy. You get the same psychological response when you do that same thing for another person. And especially if you rescue someone in their time of need, like, you get a double effing dose.
Yeah.
So if you go one for one, what benefits you can even do it selfishly. Go help somebody selfishly so that you feel good because you did it.
I talked to my pastors about that one time. I said, I'm concerned. I feel like when I give, I'm doing it for the right reasons, but it makes me feel really good. So am I not doing it for the right reasons? And they're like, you are allowed to feel good from helping others.
100%. Like, and honestly, like, if we're spending the same amount of money, if we're doing more good, if everybody feels good because of it, and then we don't need social safety nets, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a believer in social safety nets. The problem is, I know human nature. Once you set up a net and you live there, you're there forever. You create a dependency. Yeah. That's not good for the human spirit. Think about somebody who is now dependent on the government, lives in substandard everything, and has to spend these 80 precious years of their life in torture. Yeah, we kept them alive, but they didn't live while they were there, right? And they didn't affect the community and culture as well as they could have if they would have been allowed to, create fortitude, be able to participate, pursue being the goodness and becoming a good person. Like all of that stuff is deprived of those people. And that's what the rest of us are like, that's what living is.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I tell people like, I know somebody, and we'll get to some comments here in a sec. I know somebody who's a strong atheist, hates Christianity, and is all about the scientific method. Oh, you need the scientific method and you got to be able to follow the scientific method. And you got to blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, all right, you're into experiments, right? You got to experiment something and see the result. Yeah. I go, here's an experiment. Do what I do. Go do what I do. Get in a small group, go to church, read your Bible, give to others, do what I do. And you don't have to do it with the belief of a higher power. You don't have to think Jesus was any savior. Just do the things. See if you feel better. See if your life is different. If it's not, you go back to your old ways. No harm, no foul. But what if it is? Maybe there's something there. Maybe. They won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And those same people, they will, the reason religions exist is because men have the desire to explain things that are metaphysical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't direct that curiosity into the metaphysical, you're just going to create it in a different department. So I bet you your atheist friend has a lot of non-scientific method beliefs that they throw the same zealotry into, but it's just not in a deity, or it's just not in a god of some kind.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, the vaccine one was an easy one, right? And how many zealots jumped on the religious COVID vaccine bandwagon, right? You couldn't question it. It was something you were a bad person if you didn't go along with. Like all of the little check boxes for what means to be a religion just expressed itself in something that had nothing to do with goodness. It's crazy.
That's true. Jared says my pronouns are cream crop.
Cream crop. Jared is cream crop.
I think anyone in a certain lower tax bracket should get a hunting fishing license automatically. That would help. Oh, that's interesting. To go and hunt your own food?
Grow your own garden? Drill all of that time that you have into creating things?
Learn a skill?
Learn some skills?
Provide for, like, what's the word? Grocery stores, things of that nature. But that's an interesting thought. I don't hate it. Jerry says, can either of you explain if a couple of females are wife or husband, why not refer as husband or wife versus they? Let's just continue to confuse our children and not care about it. Thank you for everyone that doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings over their bucking the system and them knowing it. Done venting on it now.
So what was the question? Why they?
I don't really.
Female wife
if they're
referred to as husband or wife.
So, Jerry, are you saying like if there's a female couple, just call them wife and wife instead of they? Why not refer as husband or wife versus they? Or you might be a little lost on your point, Jerry. You might have to help us out. I wonder if he means, okay, yes. So if it's like two men who are married, just say this is my husband, and two women can say wife. Why do they have to say they? I think is what he's asking, because it's confusing our children, I think is what he's saying.
Now, is wife, husband, are those sort of like a duty? Is that a role? Or does it really matter? Like in a relationship that, hates the patriarchy and, gender roles shouldn't be a thing. Like, I don't think either term really applies, because you're not saying like, who's the protector and who's the nurturer, who's the one that's good at this and who's the one that's good at that. They're of the same gender, and they could, like, if I was like, hey, I'm going to be the butch, right? I'm going to be the protector. I'm going to play the male role. So I am the husband. And you're the, more feminine, and you're going to play the nurturer role. Now we are husband and wife because we're adopting into a role. But I have a feeling it's in spite of that, right? Because there are culturally very acceptable and popular to hate the patriarchy. And so when you're a rebel and you're pushing against the status quo, the goal is to invent something better than what is, right?
Mhm.
And so if that experiment goes well, then it's like, oh, all men should pair up together and they could go conquer the world. Is there any downside with no feminine, sort of like inspiration in that? Or if there's two women and there's two nurturers and they're missing parts of the role, is there any downside in that? When you can take your scientific method, people, and figure out which is a better dynamic when it comes to what the purpose of a family is. Is it child rearing? Is it building, families and institutions? Is it for posterity? Whatever the role is, however it's been, defined, we should be able to measure if that dynamic is better or worse than the dynamic that preceded it.
So is that kind of like, some people will argue that you can have same-sex couples be legally joined, but it can't be called marriage because by definition, marriage is a man and a woman who get together in order to procreate and have a family or whatever the heck it is. That's why they say, I don't care if you want to be legally bound and be in a union together. That's just not the definition of the word marriage. Like, is that kind of what you're saying? Is why do you use the words in the titles?
To me, there's really no downside. Like what Jerry says is that it affects the children, right? And you have this, the symptoms of it being culturally accepted is it's something that then can be decided. Like there was a time when men and women joined together and there was only a minority of people who, broke away from that status quo normal. But now when it's an option and let's just say, you're not great with the boys, right? You're struggling to be able to date well and have a good experience.
Yeah.
And so you're like, what are my options? Like the meeting a nice guy is not working out. Let's try a girl. And the more socially acceptable it is, like you're not gay by any means, but you sort of like went there because of necessity. And maybe you had a better experience with a woman. And again, there's really no downside other than who it affects other than you, where it gives an option that may be better or worse to a confused child that needs a whole lot of, parenting. And now you've said, hey, you know what? If you're having a rough day, go take some heroin, right? It may be better. It may be worse. And culturally, we're kind of confused about whether or not those behaviors add or subtract from making us solid, making us whole, making us a better community.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I feel like when it comes to people being gay, there's that like nature nurture debate. Are you born that way? Are you made that way? Can you be encouraged to be that way?
Well, you want to have it real quick? What do you feel? Do you think it's nurture or nature?
I feel like it can be both depending on the person.
Okay.
I have known someone that tried to hide it for many, many years. It was a guy. He was clearly gay. He was flamboyant, the way he spoke, the way he acted, the things he was interested in. And for years, acted like he liked girls and tried to date girls and was like, I'm not gay. And then finally one day was like, I can't do this. I am gay. I was embarrassed by it and I didn't want anyone to make fun of me, but you know what? I am what I am. And to me, that was somebody born that way. I also know of 2 different women that said, I dated men or I was married, I had children, I was straight until I was horrifically abused by this man. And men have treated me so badly for so long and were so abusive, I went to women and now I date only women. And that feels a little like it was kind of a altered behavior rather than born that way. So I don't really know. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to change the dynamic a little bit because there's too much emotion in the other one. The things I'm going to say are going to hit differently. Okay.
You're going to offend people?
Yeah. And I don't want to truly offend people.
Yeah.
We are primitive. We are animals. We are primitive. You don't think that if if it struck me one day that I could go over there and hump the couch and really get off on it, right? That would be in denial that there are primitive needs that are satisfied by certain things, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say, do you think all human beings have the potential of killing or theft. We'll use theft because that won't get me flagged on YouTube.
Yes.
Theft. Do you think all people, a primitive instinct is to take something that is not yours? Have we demonstrated this all through history that it's pretty much all in us, right?
Yeah.
And whether or not we act on it are environmental things. Either when people say biologies, I think it's a scapegoat, right? Because when you're born, you're pure, and everything you get exposed to, the things you eat, the things you breathe, the people you're around, the TV you watch, everything affects you from that point on. So to be born in it, our scientific method people would be, let's study thieves, right? This person was born, they became a thief, even though their dad was a preacher, and so they had to have been born a thief. Now let's take two babies that really were exposed to the exact same thing, and I want you to culture them differently. I want you to have them eat different things. I want you to have them wear different things. I want them to be around different people. And we're going to compare what they become and see if they are still identical, even though they were born identical. Now, do I think that, feminine characteristics came in play with genetics? Yeah, absolutely. You make copies of genetics and DNA, and eventually you get these hybridizations that make a genderless species, right? That will happen to us, is that we will not need to have, attributes that evolution basically works, so that it gives characteristics, sort of an advantage as generations go by. So I have a feeling that big tits, wide hips played a role in making some women more, desirable than other women. And so genetically, who bred were the people who had the attributes, and eventually you have a civilization of certain things. When you take effort off of that, and you have sciences and technologies that make some of the things easier, then childbearing hips and large breasts are not as advantageous to the survival of a species, and everybody's just mating with everybody else and really don't have a preference, and even socially put other attributes are pushed to become more superior at a certain point, then eventually some of those glaring attributes that are different than normal normalize into a homeostasis of what the human body looks like and acts as. And so science can test whether or not, like, you have a gluten allergy, right? Do you think you were born with a gluten allergy, or do you think you developed a gluten allergy because of behaviors?
The doctors say it's inherited.
Exactly. So if we can't agree, right, on that, I'm going to say you were developed into that. You developed into attributes. My large brain and fierce synapses were cultured because of behaviors over a long period of time. I could have been a dumb Joe. I could have gone in a completely different direction if my family lived somewhere else, ate different things, were exposed to different things. I could have been a big dumb Joe instead of a really smart Joe.
So inherited over time based off of the actions and habits
of people that came before you.
Interesting.
Right? So I don't think anybody born today, if they've got feminine characteristics, means that they're gay, especially if there's social pressures that give advantage to not being gay, right? Mm-hmm. But if socially, if we're cool with, two guys getting together, they adopt a baby, they raise it well, that baby goes and does great things and doesn't, ill affect anything, then nobody really cares what happens, right? Mm-hmm. But if it's socially something where there's sort of like a social benefit, where if a Hollywood actress, right, will reach a lot in life with regular nuclear family and 2 kids and they're just normal, but if they can marry a woman and have 2 kids that are now transgender, if their social status goes up from there, then that's a contagion that when other people say, how do I get people to pay attention to me, is I do different behaviors, but then I don't want to say that I did that so people will pay attention to me. Mm-hmm. So then I invent justifications and say, the reason this happened was definitely genetic. I saw the genetic differences. It was inherent. They were born that way. I was just serving the inherent nature of what happened. And it's a lot easier of an excuse than saying, socially, I took the pressures. I did the thing. I benefited me in the moment. And only down the road, right? When everybody was wearing Michael Jackson jackets, right? They want to feel that it was not social pressure. I was born with this is me. I like Michael Jackson and this jacket. Nothing to do with everybody else was wearing one. You'll swear to the grave because you don't want to attribute it to the pressure, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, when you look back and say, what the F was I thinking, right? After the temporary nature of that trend started to diminish, then you're like, holy shit.
It is interesting. I mean, you look at people like, you know who JoJo Siwa is?
Yeah.
At one point, she came out and said she was a lesbian, was in a relationship with another female. Now she's with a guy. She has publicly stated, I was encouraged to be gay.
For my career, yeah.
Yeah.
Clout chasing. And
she's like, I'm not sure that I am. But it voted very well for me.
That's what Jerry was saying, where if it becomes something that has no stigma about it, right, and it's pushed by people, then when you have a confused child that will basically is brain dumb until they're in their 20s, and they look at it as something that's on the menu, you don't think if you put it on the menu that certain people are going to buy it, and you can't use the person that was genetically hated it, didn't want to do it, lined up with how they felt, use that as the example of the one that you created because of the social pressure. I'll agree that those exist. I grew up with one too. Played sports. Kid was as feminine as you can possibly get. Ended up marrying a woman, having a lot of kids, and never served that very feminine exterior and feminine personality and feminine expressions. But if you would have told me at a certain point he pulled that lever, I would have not been surprised.
I used to work with someone many, many, many years ago that I had the wife, had the kids. I remember their office had like Sports Illustrated models all over, you know, the typical guy's office. And I would see this person in the morning and they'd go, hey girl, how you doing? And I'd be like, how are you? He's like, oh, I'm good. And I'm just like, does your wife know that? You know, like I was the same thing and never ever did that. Still with the wife, still happily, seemingly straight person. And he probably is straight. But if he were to ever come out or be with a man or whatever, would not be surprised in the slightest.
And maybe that sports memorabilia was the wisdom and reminder that if he went into certain places that he knew what road that he was going to be on.
I always thought like overcompensating. Like
it's not that.
I always thought like, oh, if you were secure, you wouldn't have to.
No.
Put it out there.
That's a social pressure. That's bullshit right there. Okay, almost like if you know you've got tendencies to go to vice, lie, cheat, steal, and then you had the Bible around to remind you that you shouldn't do those things. Would that be overcompensating, or was that be reminding you of the path that you need to keep?
So how would you say then? So the kid that I went to school with, like all through high school, he acted like we were friends and we were in the same friend group, and he always acted like he liked me, like would hang out with us at dances and told everybody had a crush on me. And I remember one night I was at a girlfriend's house, and when I went to leave, there was like a yellow rose on my car. And I was like, who put a rose on my car? It was him. And when he came out, I was like, why did you try so hard? Like, if you were always gay, you were never into me. And he said, I wanted to hide it. Like, I wanted to look like.
That's a different thing.
But don't you think then that they could sort of overcompensate to appear one way because they're hiding?
If they're lying, that's still lying.
Yeah. They were putting on like this facade to seem.
Again, I have a disbelief that there is, someone that says, I was born a thief, I can't help it. Right. Mm-hmm. A person that says, I have a brain that if I gave in to my thieving tendencies, I would become a thief. And if they don't want to become that, then they put wisdom in their life, their environments that remind them that they don't want to give in to that tendency.
Oh, are you saying telling me they were hiding it is the lie?
Yes.
Oh, it's not a lie of what they're doing. It's their justification. They were lying.
Well, no, the other way around. The other way around. They knew that they were gay. and they were pretending to not be gay. And they were selling the lie by putting flowers on there. That was a prop in a lie.
Yeah.
That's not overcompensating. That's just lying. Now, my friend, right, who had feminine tendencies, never gave into it. And he was involved in sports and very machismo, everything. And I believe that was a reminder that if he went on a different path, he knew he would end up as a different thing. So he had tendencies that would lead him into something that he didn't want to do. Environmentally, he kept himself in check by the wisdoms that kept him on the path he wanted to be on. And that was his choice. If he'd have chose differently, like, I'm just going to give in to the thievery, right? I'm just going to give in. I want to become a thief. Total respect for that. It's an honest versus a dishonest approach.
I see. Jared does say that Cream Crop was a Macho Man Randy Savage reference, going from calling everyone brother like Hulk Hogan.
Jared, I totally missed that, but you took me back a little ways to
brother
Randy Savage. Was that good, Savage?
Oh yeah, that was a better one.
All right, you want to do some space talk?
Yeah, because
oh no,
I had to tell you something.
Yeah.
Speaking of like when Emma Lobro said something about aliens, I saw a video. I should have sent it to you. It was kind of cool. I don't know if this was AI or if it was a real interview. So this may or may not actually be true, but it looked like an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Kind of looked like maybe he was on Rogan. And they were asking him about aliens. And he said, the thing is, if aliens actually do exist, they can't see us. They would never see us to find us because, and he talked about the fact that like light years away and light, taking so long to travel and what we're seeing isn't the present. Like he's like, when we look up at the sky and we see stars, we're seeing what that star was, millions, billions of years ago. That's not an active star. We're just now receiving the light from it. So anything we see in space is already in the past. We're just receiving the light from it. So they wouldn't even be able to see or find us. We would be like on a whole other kind of time frame, basically. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, technically it's true. Think of an insect that lives 30 days, right? It lives in your backyard in a little anthill, right? Now you're going to go and tell them all about elephants, right?
Yeah.
Now, elephants technically exist, but neither of them can live long enough to make the travels to see one another. Okay? Because take the ant travel path and you'll never make it to the Saharan Africa to meet an elephant. Okay?
Yeah.
So the distance is, and I think because of our modeling and how we do our solar system, we don't really get an idea of how vast it is, how really vast it is. And so if we're let's just say human-like carbon-based life forms, right, that have a lifespan where we deteriorate and we only live 100 years, right? It's probably very similar to other carbon-based life forms of how we're constructed and we're deconstructed. And we sent the Voyager spacecraft. We launched it from Earth in 1974. And just recently, I think in 2019, it just cleared where Pluto was. It just entered interstellar space.
Whoa.
That is 50 years to just get out of our solar system. Now, what makes aliens very likely to exist is because there are trillions of solar systems and trillions of galaxies, right?
Yeah.
And if it took us 50 years to just get outside of Pluto, right?
Yeah.
Then think about the next nearest star and how many millions of years it would take traditional space flight to be able to get there. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Now, number two is what if there are life forms that are non-carbon based, right? They're not going to look like us. They're not going to be like us. They're going to be completely different to us. They're going to experience time different. They're not going to have biologics. They're going to experience space differently than us. So we won't meet them, not necessarily because of the scale of our solar system, but because they're so different, we wouldn't even know that they were a thing if we were looking at them.
Like what keeps us from traveling? Our lungs, our blood,
Right.
Our things of that nature could be totally different. And space travel doesn't affect their bodies like it does ours.
And number three, if you are a spacefaring, civilization, some distant galaxy far, far away,
Yeah.
and you master near speed of light travel, because that's what it takes to travel the vast distances. Well, either you're going to do speed or you're going to start bending space. And as soon as you start dimensional things, then they might not occupy the same plane we're in, let alone be able to like show up on our front porch. They might not dabble in space at all. They might be able to travel to places just by being able to master space and time. So those three things. If they're us, they're too far away from us, is number one. If they're not us, then they might not be even recognized as a living thing, much like you walk out into the desert and see a rock and you're not like, hey, that's a living thing. And number three, the mastery of space and time means that they might exist on a completely dimensional plane or different dimensional plane than we do. So we've been fascinated with little green men forever, and there are probably little green men out there. If you take the infinite nature of the universe and you just take the odds that we were the only biological creature to be assembled together, and either the creationist or the completely just evolutionary side of things, when you talk about infinity, right, it's hard to wrap your head around the number of things there are and how far away they are from us.
I've heard that the human brain cannot picture 1 million. That doesn't even sound like that big of a number. But if you're picturing what you think is 1 million, it's not. So we're supposed to fathom infinity.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. That's all I got.
Probably the best demonstration of infinity. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Really hard. And just kind of wrap your brain around this one.
Oh gosh.
So the infinite monkeys on a typewriter. You ever hear this?
Infinite monkeys on a typewriter.
Infinite monkeys on a typewriter. Okay. So I want you to picture an infinite amount of monkeys, just as far as you can see in every direction, infinite amount of monkeys. And in front of each one of the monkeys, there's a typewriter, right? And they're just blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
Now, do you think when they're mashing the keys that they're ever like constructing a word, right? Accidentally hitting Kelin. You got an infinite amount of them.
Maybe at some point, odds would be that at least one of them makes a word.
When you have an infinite amount of monkeys, one of those monkeys, at least one, probably an infinite amount of them, randomly type out all the works of Shakespeare. That's how big infinite is. If you have that many examples, the mathematical certainty that they just go this and it becomes all of Shakespeare's work is certain. Okay.
It will happen.
It will happen. Not just one, not just like the opening paragraph of sonnet number 1, all of Shakespeare's work. There's one monkey at least, probably an infinite, that mash out Shakespeare's full collection.
This sounds like is it finite theory? No. What's the theory where like the way our Earth works with gravity, with everything, is so fine-tuning theory. Have you heard of this? It's so fine-tuned. If anything was off by like a millim, whatever, couldn't sustain life. Like everything on our planet and our Earth and our world is so precise. And somebody said it's almost like, what did I hear? Somebody used an example. It's like shooting an arrow and hitting a bullseye light years away.
If you had a sample size of 1,000, then yes, it's finely tuned. If you have an infinite trillions to the trillionth power of things, it's not as fine tuned as you would imagine. Just like the monkey making the Shakespeare, you would walk up to that and say, this monkey is fine tuned, right? But it's not. It's the scale that crushes your thing. You can't contemplate 1 million. You could contemplate the number 1 million, right? But you can't contemplate when you have to do 1 million of something. You've never experienced 1 million of anything. Well, seconds maybe, but you haven't consciously registered 1 million of anything. So when you're talking about infinite, you're talking about a scale that fine tuning means, if you had 1 million of something and one thing happened that was completely unlikely, you'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's, there were 300 million people that bought this lottery ticket and I was the winner. Like, that seems very fine too. Like, it was a gift from God. Right.
Mhm.
But if I said that I had an infinite amount of lottery tickets sold, and you saw that almost an infinite amount of them were winners, then it would be less impressive. But the scale changes how math dynamics work. But let me talk about my space thing, because we went into aliens.
Go
and
ahead.
dimensions.
Sorry.
All right. You might have a shot at some northern lights if these white clouds move out of here. Did you hear what happened yesterday?
No.
Okay. I am rabid for a Carrington event. I'm rabid for it.
Even though it doesn't sound like a good thing.
It is not a good thing, and it is a complete game changer for everyone on this planet. So yesterday, a solar flare lit, right? Big disruption. They watch these solar storms. You get this pulse of energy that comes out from the sun. Most of the time, it heads off in a direction that is away from Earth or not in the general direction. But this one, and followed by an actual ejection, this plasma that comes towards Earth, when it's in small doses and quantities, it hits our magnetosphere and the energy gets dumped out of the poles and you see the northern lights, right? When it's extreme, like during the Carrington event, the magnetosphere is overwhelmed with the amount of energy that makes its way down to the Earth. It overwhelms the magnetosphere. And then the energy that makes it down to ground level, where we have all of our electronics and all of our, electrical lines and cable lines, that stuff becomes energized as it's conductive to that material that's coming down, and it short circuits all of those lines. The last time in the Carrington event, we were on what's that called?
Telegraph.
We had telegraph poles lining everywhere. The telegraph poles started sparking and exploding because there was so much energy. People were getting shocked.
I was going to say, would it shock you?
Yes. So much energy gets down to ground level.
Shocked like a little zap, or shocked like an electrocute
if the energy can get absorbed on the telegraph lines and absorb enough of it to spark, there's a lot of energy coming down that's being conducted. So anyway, I'm not saying this is going to be a Carrington event. But if you look at the last 10 years, like when you were a kid, did you ever hear about the northern lights in Ohio or wherever?
No, they were like at the North Pole or something. Yeah.
And I looked at charting going back into the 50s on the activity at the sun's level. How many days would go by between sunspot events or sun ejection or plasma ejections? And back then it was like 250, 280 days could go by, and then they'd have an event. In the last 10 years, 8 of those 10 years have been 0 days between activity on the sun. Okay.
Dang.
So it is much more active in our generation here than it ever has in, the United States, or when they started, tracking this stuff.
Do you think the increase in activity then increases how long until it burns out? Do you think the sun will ever burn out?
Oh, it'll envelop the Earth. That's a certainty. I mean,
it'll take over the Earth, but will it be gone one day?
Oh yeah, it'll grow in size as it consumes more of its core. It'll keep expanding, and that sun will keep getting closer to the Earth until it envelops it. We'll be in the sun.
We'll burn up,
and then when it runs up enough, when it runs out of the enough of the fuel at the core, it'll explode, and then our solar system will be done. But that's billions of years away. You're not going to put that on your
before
calendar.
That happens. Is it first going to envelop Mercury, and then it's going to envelop Venus?
It'll just keep moving out until the entire solar system is inside the sun.
So when we start seeing other planets,
listen, you're not going to see it.
Then we can start worrying.
No. It is more likely that the energy that's belched out at us is more dangerous than being enveloped by the sun. It's going to happen. I'd say within the next 20 years, we get a Carrington event, which is going to be devastating in a way different way.
Catastrophic.
Yeah.
To our physical planet, or just to our way of life?
Physical planet.
Ooh.
We're dependent on electronics and things that are fed by electricity.
Yeah.
So if you're really good at camping where you don't need any kind of electronics, you'll be good.
But that's what I mean. Our way of life will change as we know it. We will have to adapt, or our planet will be a little less inhabitable.
For a period of time. Yeah.
Okay.
Think of all the infrastructure burning to the ground and then having to rebuild all of civilization with millions of dependent people who use that stuff every day, who have no survival instincts
My
whatsoever.
God, look what happened with the Verizon outage, and we're supposed to have a Carrington event?
Yeah. So anyway, Northern Lights today and tomorrow. Look up at the sky if we get a non-cloudy day. It can go as far as Alabama, the Northern Lights. I've never seen that before.
Interesting. Yeah. Here's a totally random question.
Yes.
I just really want to know, and you might know the answer to this.
Okay.
Speaking of cell phones and towers and things of that nature, why does my husband's cell phone not work in our kitchen? Why is that a thing? Why is it if I have to call him, he better be nowhere near our kitchen or I can't get a call through to him? Now, if he goes upstairs, maybe in the living room, phone's in the kitchen, you won't.
There's
a
million reasons, but here's my top 5 of what could be happening here.
Okay.
Number 1, signal contamination. Your cell phone is transmitting on a certain frequency range, and there are probably 100 devices in your house that also are real close to that frequency range. And so while your phone's trying to receive something, it's not getting a pure signal because there's other frequencies that are too close to it. That could be number 1. Number 2, building materials. And so, like this Carrington event that I suggest, you can build a cage around electronics that take the energy and dump it off to ground it out to other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means that a signal, and the cell phone reception is capping through a frequency range. That same frequency range will be blocked because it'd be absorbed by the Carrington cage and dropped off. So if you had plumbing or you had cinder block walls or metal or whatever, you could be getting Faraday caged in your own house, depending on how your house is built.
Interesting.
Now, all of these different cell provider technologies use different kind of antennae. So when they broadcast out, there are certain waves that have high speed, but don't go even through traditional materials very well. So like if you had a, LTE versus 5G or 5G versus 4G or whatever, you might have 4G that penetrates through cinder block better, right? But as a slower speed. And then you have a faster one, which if I can put on my marketing material that I've got a faster network, but it doesn't permeate in through materials very well, then you might have, just a barrier wall that's blocking enough of the signal to make, your 5G not work. If you could somehow switch to another band and use 4G and see if you've got perfect signal strength, then you know that it's probably something that's just absorbing 5G.
Interesting. It's incredibly frustrating. And I said, I don't know. Like at first we're like, oh, is it just our provider? And we even switched from Verizon to T-Mobile. And
it might sometimes work depending on if they use different technologies.
Yeah.
And you might get a stronger signal that gets into that room.
I will call and I can text and I can be like, I've been trying to reach you. And he's like, oh, my phone was right here. It could work over here, but it can't work over here.
If there's a Carrington event, I expect your family to be huddled in the kitchen because that is your Faraday cage room.
But now we do have, the Google, the kind of like Alexa, but hey, okay, Google, and you get it to do. That's in the kitchen. And then obviously there's appliances. Wouldn't those all sort of be unable to operate well if there was some sort of Faraday cage thing going on?
That's coming from the outside world. You have Wi-Fi in your house. That stuff's traveling in the inside of your house.
Oh.
No, cell signals have to get through your titanium siding on your house and maybe struggling with it.
I don't think we have.
But if you have a lot of those devices, you might get signal contamination. I'd unplug a couple of them and see if the cell phone gets, cordless. I know nobody has cordless phones anymore, but cordless phones used to be a big one. Remember how you used to be able to tune your phone and listen to other people's conversation that were near your same frequency?
No.
Was I the only bad guy that was listening into my
I've heard about, before I was a kid, I've heard about party lines where everybody's phone rang when one person was getting but I don't know anything about tuning
when you had
your phone.
when you had cordless phones, you had the base and the receiver that broadcast on a certain frequency range.
Yeah.
And there was a channel within that range that slightly moved the frequency it was broadcasting in. So yours was perfectly set up, but if you moved away from that, right, you might end up on a channel that was for your neighbor, and you can hear their base station when they were on the phone transmitting and being received by your headset.
Was it clear?
Very clear.
Did you listen to
all
people?
the time?
Was it interesting?
No, it's really boring. People are really boring.
Yeah, that's like if someone ever butt dials you. You ever listen for a while to see what's going on? You called me.
Privacy?
You called me. I'm listening.
But you knew they didn't know.
Never anything. You can't hear anything, and if you can, it's not interesting. My brother one time did that. He accidentally went Facebook Live through a butt dial, and I'm like, what the heck is this? And it was like in his pocket, and all you see is random noise and shuffling. And I was like trying to call, like, you're on Facebook Live right now, everything you're doing. And he's like, oh, whoops. Like, wasn't doing anything.
But if somebody leaves you like a voicemail and it's a butt dial voicemail, I listen to the end thinking that if there's like a struggle going on, they might say, help me. And I'll know whether or not that was a call for help. I have to listen to that one.
I was on a call Friday with a customer, sweet little old lady. And as we're conducting our phone call, she needs to have me hold on a minute because someone's at her door and they're just banging, banging, banging. Her dog's barking and she's got to let this person in. Give me 1 sec. No problem. No rush. Go ahead. And you can hear this little old lady going literally, God help me. God help me. God help me. Just trying to get to where she's going. And at one point I was like, what would happen if it sounded all of a sudden on my end like she fell or was calling for help and she couldn't get back to me? And I was like, I'd have to like get my other phone and call 911 and send them over to her. And this is what my brain does randomly.
Jared says, if mankind cannot explain it, then it couldn't possibly exist, right? Depends on what you mean by exist. Okay, so there are plenty of people who, if they can't measure it through our dimension and our plane of existence, then it doesn't exist. If you believe in planes of existence that physics can prove, then it does exist, even if we can't perceive. So from a science standpoint, even if you can't measure it, it still can exist. And our understanding, and that's why I say like the metaphysical versus the physical, the dividing line is when you talk metaphysics, you're talking about things like spirituality and religion and whatever. When I talk about metaphysics, I'm thinking things that can't register on the physical side of things, they still can exist, and we're trying to get an understanding for things that we can't see. We have belief that we know what they are, and we try to assign that names to it and make get an understanding of it, but we don't truly have a beat on it because we can't measure it. We wouldn't have quantum computers if the quantum level, which is hard to measure, hard to make sense of, and we still mastered it because I'm going to consider it metaphysical. I know physicists wouldn't, quantum physicists wouldn't agree with me, but it's still something in your world. Quantum physics or Bitcoin or, multiverse or whatever, those can be proven, right, to a point, but then it takes a lot of belief and suspension that I can't measure it in order to really wrap your arms around it. So to most people, exist is it's an arbitrary word.
Like tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it. Does it make a sound?
Yeah. Depends on what your definition of sound is.
Yeah. Like how can sound exist if there's no receiver?
Who made up that? Who made up that definition?
No, it might have been on The Simpsons.
In order to have a sound, you have to have a recipient of that sound.
If sound waves go out,
you nailed it right there.
If sound waves go out, does it make a sound if there's nothing to receive those waves as sound? Is it just waves? It's not sound.
A better definition would be, did something emanate frequencies that are perceivable by the human ear, right? If the sun spits off electromagnetic activity in the opposite direction and we didn't receive it, did electromagnetic activity come off of the sun? It created the thing that went in a direction, and even no one heard it, saw it, felt it, it still happened.
Is it still considered sound if not heard?
Definition of sound.
Must be heard?
Okay. Then,
Well, then a tree,
then-
if no one's around to hear it, it does not make a sound.
right.
It has all the makings of sound, but doesn't
Could
become
be a potential
sound
sound.
until a receiver absorbs it.
Yeah. But if you said, did it create waves that we identify as sound waves, then it still makes
Probably.
those frequencies. So it made sound waves that didn't fall on an ear. We are just cutting these things up.
It's exciting.
Rumor has it that Elon's satellite company is going to go public and sort of set up competition with cell services in the internet. Only
Any thought, Mr. Data King?
okay. Yes, he's absolutely going to do that. Terrestrial antennae are not going to be how cell phones are done. I've talked to a ton of the tower people. And so the way tower systems work here is that somebody takes a plot of land, they throw down a slab, they put a big tower up, and then they lease the tower space to all the cell companies. So this is really big business in the United States of selling and leasing tower space for cell phone companies. They need a lot of it. They need it positioned all over the country. So the tower building and servicing is huge business here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if you didn't need a tower? What if you could just hover a satellite that was encapsulating the entire Earth with enough electronics to be able to get cell phone data up, cell phone data down, and you don't need towers on the ground, right? So if I'm the tower companies, I'm going to delay that shit as long as possible because that cuts completely into my business. It is probably less expensive to have a radio that's orbiting than a terrestrial tower that's on the ground. So the cell phone companies are kind of flirting with it right now. They're proving it out. There's some, my kid was hiking in the middle of Cook Forest, and there was no reception in the middle of Cook Forest at all. And he was using his T-Mobile phone that had text messaging and data that were coming completely from the Starlink network. So I 100% see satellites taking over. What was the second thing? That they're going public? Public will probably not happen. Okay. And the reason that companies go public is usually to raise capital for some kind of lofty goal, lofty expansion, whatever. SpaceX, they self-financed from the very beginning using the fundraising from their other companies, and they have enough, private and public launches that they are paying their bills just with the money that they're raising. Okay, will the Mars ventures need more capital? It may, and if they go public, it means they're really close to mass producing starships that go to Mars. So I don't see that happening like right now. That's a little bit down the road. They don't need cash. They're very cash positive. I think like just these Starlink, they had to launch all these satellites and they were making next to no money. They totally self-financed. Now they're making like $5 billion a month on the services, the memberships to the Starlink. So they can completely self-fund by this point.
Dang. So this is probably going to be a silly question because I have no idea how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any risks to having things operated based off of something orbiting in space? Like does space junk pose a risk? Does like something getting knocked out of whack pose a risk? If we have a lot of things up in space, can that ever be detrimental to the Earth or things kind of coming back into our atmosphere?
This is a scale discussion. Yes, there's a lot of space junk that's up there, and which means that if you're launching rockets, that there's something above you, or it falling back down to Earth. It's a real question. So they've kind of mastered it because I think they have like maybe 10 satellites a week that splash down and come back down to Earth. They're only put up there for 8 years, and then they're done, and they just deorbit them and they crash and burn up in the atmosphere, and they never reach the ground. But to think of the scale, if you look at the number of satellites, let's just say there are 10,000 satellites overhead. That sounds like a lot. But when you actually watch the map, and if I said there are only 3 SpaceX satellites over Ohio at any given time, okay, that would be like me saying there are 3 cars in Ohio. Are you afraid of hitting one?
Not really.
Not really, right?
Yeah.
Because they're the size of a car, a bus, and there's only 3 of them. Let me look at it's been a while since I've seen what the
Yeah.
let's see how many of them are over Ohio right now. And there's a bunch of them. And when you look at the entire Earth, it looks like a lot more than if you just look at Ohio. But this basically positions all of them in their orbits.
And we can control them from here? Whoa!
Okay. So
those are satellites?
These are just the space, not all satellites. Oops.
There's stuff all around the Earth.
Yes. Okay, so here's Ohio. And right now there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. And they're constantly in movement. So if I was traveling here, that I would be connecting to this one. And if I went somewhere else, I'd be connecting to the other one. But still only 7 in the state of
Are we
Ohio.
looking at the green dots? Because that orange dot's moving.
Well, I clicked on it, so it's tracking.
Oh, that's
that
your
one.
marker.
I'm following
Okay.
that one. So, yeah,
So when they're
1,
moving,
2,
could they move out of Ohio, or they only go?
Well, there
so
would be
many-
other ones that are on a different orbit that would cross Ohio when that one leaves. So it's only about the same
So
amount.
we can control.
All of those. They all have computer systems.
We're talking about every orange dot
Every orange dot is a SpaceX satellite.
that we can control.
Yeah. Let me
Holy
put that up there.
cow! Show people that. That's way more than I thought. Maybe I'm naive. Did anyone else think there was that? Look at all those orange dots.
Okay. So yeah, is there a risk of having things overhead in large quantity? Yes.
Yeah.
But if I said that there were only 7 overhead in Ohio right now, you wouldn't be afraid of hitting one of them. It would be a needle in the haystack if you could even hit one of them.
Could a Carrington event cause problems with anything dropping out of the sky?
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine that because they're above the atmosphere, that was taken into consideration, and they probably have shielding that protects them from electromagnetic, but it could definitely disrupt the communication between the satellites.
Can you imagine if all of those dots fell to the Earth?
They'd all burn out. They wouldn't make it.
Would they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're traveling at,
Holy
14,000
crap.
kilometers per second. And so when it hits the atmosphere, it's moving.
Yeah.
And the shielding, it is meant to break up and burn up as it comes down through the atmosphere. So they'd never reach the ground.
How big is a satellite? Like this? Like this? Like
Like a bus.
a bus?
Yeah.
So it could be like a bus falling all over the Earth, just raining buses.
Yeah, you'd see shooting stars is what you would see is a bunch of shooting stars.
So when we see shooting stars, that's not always a shooting star. That could just be
Could be
something
a satellite,
burning
yeah.
up. Interesting.
You see, if
Could
you
make
see,
a wish on
but a rock,
satellite.
a rock that has nickel and iron in it burns up completely most of the time before it reaches the Earth. If it's got a lot of material, it'll burn mostly. So something that started out the size of Texas, when
Yeah.
it reaches the ground, it's like a ping pong ball.
So if we get hit by an asteroid that is so large it can do damage, it was way large.
Asteroids a different story entirely.
Why?
Meteors,
That's like science class here.
yes, asteroids are different thing. Think of like asteroid being a mini planet or a piece of a planet that is just huge in size.
Yeah.
And so when it comes down through the Earth, there's not enough friction to burn enough of the material before it reaches the ground. And if you have an impact from an asteroid that caused the Grand Canyon or some of those pockmarks that we have out in the desert, that was something not burning up completely, but
Yeah.
reducing size for sure.
So yeah, it's if it was big enough to leave that big of a mark, then it was ginormous.
Yes. When it started, yeah. And think we have an asteroid belt out on the other side of Mars that is huge. And think of millions of asteroids that are safely tucked into an orbit. They may probably at one point was a planet that got hit by an asteroid and broke up into a million pieces. But there are asteroids out there in that belt that would be Earth destroyers for sure.
Could they also hit Mars?
They probably do, yeah.
So you got to consider that when you go with Elon to live on
Well,
Mars.
there's no atmosphere. There's very little atmosphere in Mars. So where things would typically burn up as they reached Earth
Yeah.
doesn't have that. So a lot of the stuff that comes into that orbit makes contact
It's
with
hitting.
the land below, for sure.
Yeah. So you
we're
better be careful on Mars.
But we're going to go to Mars. We're going to send robots, and we're going to create an atmosphere. We're going to actually, the global warming that happens here. We need to do a bunch of atmosphere creation by releasing gases into the atmosphere, and hopefully they collect enough to be able to shield Mars.
We can make Mars different.
Yeah, we're going to totally terraform. We're going to change where the water is. The water right now, there's nothing on the surface. It's deep below ground. So the first thing that we're going to do is burrow into the ground, find where the ice is, and we're going to start making our fuels, our hydrogens, our oxygen. We're going to break down that water to start composing the atmosphere of the things we need to survive. It'll be multiple generations before you can go outside and breathe Martian air. Many millennia.
So you got to actually then trust and count on the process of this information being passed down from generations to generations.
Many generations worth of work.
You better hope you don't get some gen whatever that's like, no, we need to let Mars be. And then they destroy all the data. That's a real threat.
But before we're just walking outside in Mars, they'll build apartment buildings that you live inside your whole life. You don't really go outside unless you have an EV suit.
Yeah.
And so there'll be...
Sounds awful.
Why?
You're just inside all day, every day, your whole life.
See, you have not watched enough dystopian space movies.
Oh my God.
Great.
I lived through COVID and it was horrible.
Yeah, but you can create forests inside. You can create waterfalls inside, a fictitious sun.
To make you feel like you're outside.
Yes, absolutely. While you work on the actual environment and create a bunch of greenhouse gases.
Kind of like my office has no windows. So I purposely bought cool daylight light bulbs
to trick your brain and to
keep me from wanting to kill myself.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so you can make
for the most time, we're going to be inside dwellers until they've made the atmosphere hospitable for human beings. It'll happen now, but a lot of robots are going to be working there way before human beings.
Again, you have to make sure your data passes down continuously for a long time.
Yeah, if I were to take the fountain of youth and make someone live forever, it would be Elon Musk, because it needs somebody to be bought into a diminishing game, one that costs you a bunch of money and is not making you a bunch because of it, for about a century. That's a hard ask.
This is gonna be silly, but it got me thinking. Have you ever been to the restaurant Aquapazzo in Boardman? In the restaurant, anyone who's like ever eaten out on the patio, there's a big koi fish pond with a whole bunch of koi in there. Well, we went on New Year's Eve and the fish weren't moving. And our server said they are actually able to freeze themselves. The water is freezing. They are basically in hibernation right now. They're sleeping frozen. They slow their heart rate down and they live in a frozen state until they thaw out in the spring and they move again. So I'm like, animals can do it.
Mm-hmm. Ton of animals hibernate.
Could we slow down Elon Musk, slow the heart rate, put him in a frozen state?
No, but we need him active. And maybe, are you saying like every once in a while wake him up?
Yeah.
I bet that it's taxing to be frozen. So I don't know if you have net gain because your body probably goes through a lot to be reanimated. I don't know though. That's a good question.
That is interesting.
Jared says my asbestos walls really help boost my signals, saying while coughing. Yes, my attorney said do not put asbestos in your walls so that it is nice and open to frequency transmission.
Do people do that?
Dude, no. Tongue in cheek. Jared and I are being completely spicy. Asbestos is cancerous.
What if someone's like, I really need my service?
Oh, you can build a house to specs that allow frequencies to come in very easily. But they build them specifically so that what I really wish, I wish we could see down the spectrum, right? Really see what's bouncing around in our houses, not just visible light, but I wish we can go into the ultraviolet and, upside and downside to be able to see how inundated we are with different frequencies just in our homes. Yeah. So a lot of that noise that's coming from the outside is dampened on purpose. Like if you had sound waves, you have a jackhammer that's a block down. Some houses are built to be more absorbing to that stuff. Well, there could be materials that are doing the same thing with the cellular frequencies as well. If a material can absorb it or deflect it, right, and it can't penetrate through it, then you have less of that signal. And we do that purposely.
There was just a story on the news recently, local news, and I didn't get to, I saw the build up to the story. It was going to kind of be like, we'll talk about this after these commercials. And then I didn't get a chance to see it. I don't even remember what town it was, but it was a town near Youngstown that residents were mad because of an incessant hum, just this loud noise. Does anyone know what that was? I didn't see the news story. Have you heard about this? Because I'm like, we don't have the data centers yet. And I can't even remember what town it was, but like they were talking to neighbors outside and there's just this constant background. And one neighbor was like, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Like it is just everybody's being driven crazy. And I don't know if anyone saw that news story. I wanted to know what that was doing that. But yeah, you got to sort of have that wall. I mean, I remember when we built our house, we built it on a fairly busy road and everyone's like, aren't you concerned about noise? And it's going to be so noisy. And I'm like, unless I'm standing at the window of that outside wall, I don't really hear it in my house. Good insulation, I guess.
You got the asbestos. Cough, cough.
Oh, God. What else was I going to say about? Oh, I was going to sort of tie in the religious aspect we talked earlier with our whole plans for Mars. The idea of these plans have to last a really, really long time because we don't yet have the technology or the capability to do any of this now. So if we want to get there, people of today, people of tomorrow, people of 100 years from now, whatever, we've got to pass this along and keep it going and keep it understood. Isn't that kind of what we had to do with scripture? Trust other people 2,000 years ago and what they were writing down and pass it along and make sure that we can trust they knew what they were talking about and what happened actually did happen. And we just have to trust that now because we're so far removed.
Well, it's so long that we don't lose the reason why we're doing it in the first place. Okay. And a lot of things that we did, they were achievements of who we are. We take all of this fuel and we engineered into a thing that can escape Earth's atmosphere and get into space. Well, that was the challenge. And the why did we do that would have to have somebody who lays down the philosophy of why you expensed that and took that risk and whatever. Would it be an achievement today when, rockets blast off every 30 seconds on planet Earth? It's kind of like, meh, it's no big deal. So what would be, human beings have always been fascinated with the reaches beyond our knowledge, right? And you had more intelligent people and less dumb people. And now you have that the other way around. You have a lot of dumb people who couldn't explain to me why we're going to Mars in the first place because they're haters of advancement, right?
Yeah.
Status quo is cool with them. Just don't bother them and they're happy. And so populating the psyche of the people who are observing and reminding them why they're doing it in the first place. So why would we go to Mars? Why is it a really, really good idea to go to Mars? Make your case. And I'll tell you if I'd fund it.
I guess at some point, if we need the resources there because we either no longer have it here or have done something to it here and we need a backup plan. Let's start working on a backup plan.
Okay. So you have to believe that, that human beings should be a spacefaring civilization. Instead of having, finite resources on planet Earth, we can go to any planet we want, harvest any resources we need, and ferry it back home, start other populations on other planets, right? So if that's a priority to you, that we increase the potential of existence of human beings. So like right now, if an asteroid, they said, hey, get your affairs in order, an asteroid's heading towards Earth, you've got 30 days to live, right?
Yeah.
Besides just saying we're screwed, what options do you have?
Currently?
Yeah.
Nothing.
You're just going to accept your demise, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you were spacefaring and the government then rolled out all of the spaceships And we're like, we're going to launch you into space. I mean, we don't have anywhere to send you just yet, but you'll watch the Earth as it explode, and you'll at least have a couple of months that you can live in a spaceship out in space. Is that a better return? Is that a better option?
I don't know. Well, here's what my brain's thinking. If it's die now or die in space, I want to know how I'm going to die and which is the quickest, least painful, least scary.
Now, if I told you that for the last 6 months, robots are on Mars, it's not a great habitation. It's not awesome, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to put you on this thing, send you to Mars, and at least you won't be dead, right? Now, is that a better option?
It's interesting. It's interesting.
What if Mars, we proved out all of the technologies that allow us to take an uninhabitable planet and make it into one that could be lived on?
Mm-hmm.
Even a better option.
Yeah.
Because now you're in space and we have the gift that we can just make every planet into the planet that we want it to be, right? Then now Earth dies and humanity doesn't die with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we do it long enough, the reason we're doing it is, number one, the challenge of doing something and learning everything that comes along with being able to control atmospheres. So do you think if we can control and give atmosphere to Mars, that we can master the environment on Earth?
You're saying if we can build it on Mars, we can fix it here?
Yeah, there's not enough carbon dioxide or not enough oxygen, not enough hydrogen on Mars. So we're going to put it there, right?
Yeah.
And if there's too much carbon dioxide here, we're going to take it away from here. Do you think we can master what constitutes an atmosphere and be able to master it so that we can put more in if we need it and take out stuff if we don't need it? Do you think the technologies will arrive when we start dabbling in atmosphere controls? I mean, the first iteration of the plan was to go to Mars and nuke the poles, right? Nuclear weapon, boom, right? Which technically would work.
I didn't realize that was a step.
Yes, there could have been a step. But what we would lose is the fundamentals of being able to master the environment. We want to be able to master the environment with a scalpel, not a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Right? And we might use nuclear technology as a tool to do that. But in this case, I think it would have been a waste of, effort.
Can you imagine being an astronaut in a rocket going to Mars, towing a nuclear bomb?
Yeah.
Holy high risk job. Would you do it?
Yes, of course I would.
You would do it?
They use nuclear everything. There was I just wish we had more time to talk about this topic because there's so much nuclear technology that we used in propulsion systems. We tested a bunch of nuclear propulsion systems here, where basically what happens is we use a nuclear reaction that pushes a spacecraft. So think not just one explosion, thousands of explosions keep pushing a spacecraft faster and faster forward. We tested that in the middle of the desert to see if it could be controlled enough, an explosion could be controlled enough to create propulsion. So we've been messing with this stuff forever.
I'd be scared blasting off, blasting. There's a fire, there's things exploding to propel you to space, and you just hope the nuclear bomb strapped to your back doesn't get detonated.
Listen, this is not plutonium. It's not an unstable thing. It takes a whole lot for a nuke to detonate. You have to try
that's good.
Really hard to get it to detonate.
I mean, it sounds like there's
now,
a red button somewhere you just push.
And you itch the wrong way, you've exploded, then I can see that, but it's not that.
Okay, it's secure.
Yeah, it's secure. Strap that nuke to your back. Radiation is bad, so I probably wouldn't put it on my back because I'd be more afraid of the radiation and what it could do to your body, but not the explosion. I wouldn't be afraid of that.
You ever go through squirrel? You ever go through the body scanners in an airport?
Mm-hmm.
Are those very, very low radiation? Yeah. Okay, good. I only asked that when you said radiation's bad, maybe don't have it on you, because we hear about things like cell phones and stuff. And I remember when I was pregnant one time, I was flying and I didn't really want to go through the body scanner. I was like, can I do a pat down? Because I was pregnant. And they're like, yeah, we'll do a pat down. Absolutely. But just for your peace of mind, you should know your cell phone is giving you more than this machine is.
Absolutely.
And I said,
But somebody out
dang.
there said that X-rays or whatever frequencies they use for those body scanners somehow is because the wavelengths can go through the body instead of bounce off of the body, right? And so, like, if you have things inside, like DNA, that radiation could mess up your DNA as it passes through. Long exposure corrupts the DNA and makes its copies less, and then you get irregular cell growth and all that kind of stuff, right? But if then you, again, looking at the spectrum that's not visible right now and seeing all of the frequencies that are constantly passing through your body, right? That scanner is not going to concern you if you just knew how much of that stuff was hitting your body every day and going through it.
Now, what about an X-ray? Like, you go to the doctor, you get an X-ray. Far more?
Yeah, that exposure is very concentrated. And so too much exposure to the method, how X-rays are done in doctors' offices and whatnot. Yeah, you want to have some lead protections and stuff like that.
Yeesh.
Yeah. I don't like it. Any kind of radiations that has the ability to permeate, go through the skin and, hit organs and DNA and cells and all that kind of stuff. Not as less amount as possible.
Yeah, I remember I had to last year go for ladies got to go do their checkups and their mammograms and stuff. And because I was moving from another state, they were trying to get my records of the last time I had one. And they couldn't. So they're like, we're just going to start from zero and we're going to get a whole new set of all this imaging and stuff. And I almost wanted to be like, could we try harder? Can we try harder to get mine it was just a year ago. We got to do all this again. And then they say, all right, we'll see you in 6 months. What happened to a year? Well, you've got some special instances in here and we better keep an eye on it. So 6 months, not a year.
Insurance allows us to bill you every 6 months. So let's bring it in 6 months.
Yeah. Fun times.
What else do you want to talk about? We got about 20 minutes or so.
Hmm.
I did my space thing. We did aliens. We talked about time travel, multiverse, and occupying Mars.
Did you see Secretary Kennedy celebrated a birthday over the weekend?
Did he?
He did. He turned 72 years old on Saturday.
And could do more push-ups and pull-ups than I can.
Yep. Same here. I can't do it. That was going to be my goal. Was at one point I was going to try to learn to pull up. Never did.
Let's talk a little bit of Minnesota.
I was going to ask you.
Yes.
Oh my God. And I know I've mentioned this before and I keep thinking it's going to quell. I'm supposed to go to Minnesota and
you even said it like a Minnesotan.
Minnesota. I got to go to Minnesota next month. And I'm scared.
Okay.
Is this going to calm down by then? Do you think it's going to get worse by then? I got to go to downtown Minnesota in a month. Do we think?
Because
that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Sorry, Minneapolis.
Downtown state.
I have to go to downtown Minneapolis.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of like, is there anyone that lives in Minneapolis? Is it as bad as we're hearing? Is it just a lot of headlines and hoopla when it's not that bad? I'm curious.
Okay. So the duration is suspicious. Depends on a lot of things.
Yeah.
If the government in Minneapolis or the state, the governor, if they decided that they wanted to end it, they just totally could, right? They could totally quell it. They can go full tyranny and they can just end it. No more curfews on the streets, nobody showing up in public, no expression of freedom of speech.
COVID.
Go effing home, right?
COVID.
They could do that. Now they're not going to do that because it's more important that the constituents of Minneapolis feel like that they are the freedom fighter rebels that they actually are. So they are encouraging standing up into authorities because of the narrative that, Trump's a dictator and he wants to take over the city of blue state and arrest all of the illegal immigrants. So the narrative's been set that this is not going to be a short stint.
But if I'm not going to be involved in any protest, I just got to go to my convention and leave. Will they leave me alone?
I mean, wear your Trump hat and they might leave you alone. They might leave you alone. Oh, but I don't even think
I don't own a Trump hat, by the way.
I don't think we've reached escalation point as of right now. Here's how I think this is going to play out. right?
Okay.
So the ramp up is that you had protesters who were annoyances at the beginning. And what Minneapolis did the last time around was they went from annoyances to taking over large swaths of the city. And then they became emboldened and militant, where they then armed themselves. And then they started doing damage. Okay. And this was they were mad about an event that was no longer occurring. So now they went on for months destroying things, and the police were only involved to curtail the destroying of things. And that lasted an entire summer into the fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
This time, the thing that they don't like is happening every single day. Now, do I think Trump is going to pull ICE agents out, right, so that to quell it? I do not believe that. I think they're going to double and triple and quadruple down on the number of agents and the number of military that's going to have presence there to allow them to keep scraping more of the illegal immigrants. Might they run out one day? Sure. If you think that there are 2 million illegal immigrants in Minnesota and they've gotten 100,000 of them, they're going to be a little while and they're going to keep scraping. So I don't think they're going to retreat. And I think there's going to be more. Now, and again, I saw a picture of one of the protesters and they started bringing firearms to their protesters as a protective mechanism to push back against ICE agents who are tyrannical. Now, both sides are armed, right?
Great.
All it's going to take is somebody who really wants us to hit the chaotic level to get them to shoot. That's it. And then you have Kent State, right? Get them to shoot, and then it's going to be blood.
Well, that's like, I've been seeing a lot of things on the internet of like, this is not the first time we've done this. Obama, or whoever the hell else in the past, has sent in agents like this.
You can make that argument for reasonable people, but that's not going to affect.
Like, they're like, why now is there such chaos and death and destruction and pushback when they've done this before under full support? And some people say, well, now the other side has something to gain if they make it look bad.
Yeah. So look at the slow ramp up of military presence to be able to protect ICE, which will then have an equal response on the protester side, where they're both going to ramp up until full escalation, where it's no longer achievable without choreography, that somebody controlling the masses. Because once you don't have somebody in charge of the protest, then you have human nature that's going to take over, and you have those self-interested that just want to cause, casualties and destruction.
Yeah.
I hope we don't get to that point. I hope something de-escalates and gives an off-ramp and lets this thing die. But even through the weekend, I thought this is still on its way up, not down.
Yeah, because BJ had asked, it is MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. Day today. Would he be as effective if he was here today?
No.
I mean, you think of things like marching. You think of like not giving up your seat on a bus and what that did, how that was such a big thing that we still know about that today. And now it's bring a bunch of guns to people and get them shooting and fighting, and holy crap. And Julie, I hope I don't accidentally get stuck in an ICE blockade.
Okay, so let's just say you were in traffic. You had two parties to join. Would you feel safer getting behind the line of ICE agents or getting behind the line of protesters? Which is the safer bet?
Do I feel safer like my life is not in danger?
Well, you're in the midst. You drove down the wrong road, and now there is shit going down wherever you are. And you're like, I got to choose. I got to be protected. I'm not part of any of this. And so you see a line of ICE agents. Do you try to duck behind them and get their protection? Or do you duck behind the protesters line and get protection there?
Gut reaction. First answer without thinking. Get behind the ICE agents.
So it's a fair selection. You're in the middle of Russia and you're being chased down by a mob. Do you go to the consulate and run through that gate and say, I'm an American citizen? Yes. Government's job is to protect you. You're an innocent civilian. You have nothing to do with either of these plates. You're getting behind the federal agents because that's their duty to protect you.
I'm sorry. I would trust they are more rational thinking than the mob.
Mm-hmm. And they would have an incentive to protect you. as
Yeah.
an innocent life.
Yeah, the mob seems just chaotic. They don't seem to even really make sense. They're just causing chaos. I'm going to go on the organized. Julie says the chaos has been amped up by the Proud Boys and January Sixers.
They're January 6th and the Proud Boys are still amping up a today scenario. How's that work?
How does that work? Julie, I gotta ask this. I know it's futile. I just have to. I'm not talking about all situations. I don't know all the situations, and maybe there have been different situations. In the situation, in the specific example of Renee Good, Julie, can you admit Renee Good went there on purpose? Renee Good did not accidentally find herself anywhere. That was on purpose. She meant to be there. She meant to block them. She meant to get in their way. That specific example, Julie, I need to know that you can distinguish between there are maybe some instances that are not okay and that are not that, but that one was on purpose. That was not an accident. That was not her accidentally ending up there. That was completely purposely carried out.
True.
I just got to know. I just got to know that Julie knows that. I just got to know that
But
Julie
back,
knows
back
that.
back to MLK. Let me give you
Yeah.
some of my philosophy on why MLK. And it would be cool to bring back to life some of these people. Everybody from the founders of the country to civil rights leaders, and just give them a what it's like right now, and give me your I know what some people say MLK would say about today, and then I think MLK was a genius of his time. I think he was a very reasonable person, and I think he had a real systemic plight in front of him, and he was fought with everything that he was, everything that he was against that thing. I think if he saw the systemic plight, he would look at the successes of what he did and what it bought everyone. And he would kind of look at everybody who is being dramatic about how bad things are and know that we should, even go further and try to make them better. But this is not worthy of loss of life. And this is more worried about crime, civil liberties. And this isn't, making enemies of your neighbor. You guys are overreacting to a lot of what you're being faced, and diplomatically and politically you should be solving these problems, not using violence. And in my day, back in my day,
Yeah.
there was the cops were not on our side. They were actively against what we were trying to accomplish with civil rights. Now, when I look at an ICE line and a protesters line, I don't see the cops going after the people, the protesters. I see the protesters going after the police. So
Yeah.
if you're in a line of people who are just trying to keep the peace and protect something, that's the noble side in most cases.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Martin Luther King was in our day with the same mindset, trying to encourage people the same way, our people would be like, shut up.
Yeah.
I'll do
I
what
think
I want.
MLK would have a lot more to say to the protesters than the other side. I just do.
Renee Good was part of the neighborhood protest. Protesting is not illegal. Okay. That's all we're going to get there.
Well, the illusion that people are being definition of protest, standing on the curb with a sign, showing
Speaking
your
your
support for
mind.
something is not illegal.
Right.
Can you take a protest and get into territory that is illegal? So if you had a line of protesters standing in front of a line of ICE agents, you're like, oh, shit's about to go down. And what happens if they both just stand there? Who would you think would be most likely to start jawing or throwing things? It's the protesters that go beyond, I have a right to stand here and oppose you, but I'm not satisfied that my passive opposition is being effective enough, so I have to ramp it up into illegal territory. So if Renee Good was just following ICE agents around, I could still even see her being arrested for giving away the location of ICE agents. That is not protesting. That is illegal behavior, obstructing an investigation of a federal agent.
Mhm.
If then she tried to obstruct literally by getting in their way, she could be arrested. So the version of Renee Good that is that her name, by the way?
Yeah.
Renee Good, she would be alive, right? If she was protesting
only.
And
then once you committed the first crime of obstructing, then you're told, get out, and you're being arrested. You're being arrested. That's probably what would have happened. You choose to try to flee that arrest. That's a second crime. You weren't just protesting. You are actively committing multiple crimes.
Yeah, and Julie, you have the right to judge. I'm saying who would be the first to escalate? We're standing there in silence. We're just looking at each other. Who wants there to be a confrontation more? The person who starts jawing. Can you picture the ICE agents start instigating against the protester? Like, hey, protester, why don't you start throwing something? I really want to give you a beatdown. Does that sound like a thing that the ICE agents would say? Or Nazi, pussy, blah, blah. Who's more likely from a probability standpoint to instigate and ramp up the confrontation? I say protesters.
We have 3 minutes. I've had a question. What was it? That is where we differ, but we will never know because CHS DOG will not investigate. I can't remember what I was going to ask. Oh, how do you feel when they release the names and pictures and mugshots of all the murderers and child abusers and horrific criminals that have been arrested through this?
I think that's good PR. Like, people have to know that these ICE raids are taking dangerous people away. And so it doesn't help the protesters because they would like to formulate it that somebody who was, just a dad going to bake sales was the ones that were arrested.
Like, can you be on the far left and appreciate, look at all these horrific criminals that are now gone because of what they're doing.
Yep.
You got to appreciate that. You got to. Just saying.
It's a job of the government is keep it safe from people who follow the rules and protest as you might. If it's effective, you might hate the strategy. And think about how professional ICE has to be to not carry any bad PR into any of this. They make one mistake, they're doomed.
I've seen a lot of videos of ICE agents just telling people, like, stop, please don't make a bad decision today. Please stop doing this. You don't want to make a bad decision today. And people are just
that's good discipline.
Getting in their
So
face.
I'm very proud of ICE agents for how they've kept their composure in spite of people literally trying to instigate them into a fight and so that they can get the views and make the claim that they're oppressive. But I guarantee you that if everybody just stood silent, it would be infinite.
And when I say I'm nervous to go to Minneapolis, I'm nervous about protesters. Let me make that clear. I'm not scared that I might get in a scuffle with an ICE agent. I'm scared there are unhinged people there that will do something in the name of whatever. That's what makes me nervous.
And Julie, one mistake, try hundreds. But as long as protocols are being followed, where the ICE agents know what they should and shouldn't do, and they follow their protocols as they're laid out. If someone goes off, and let's just say, you ever watch the mayor of Kingstown?
No.
Okay. There's this one SWAT guy who's very trigger happy. And so he waits for an opportunity to just shoot somebody, and he's really malicious that way. And so, like, if you had one like really super
got 30 seconds.
Oh crap. All right. Well, we gotta pull up for today. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us